Welcome back, everyone, to another Ask the Editor session. I am super excited to be here today with Nikki Dudley from across the pond from Streetcake magazine. Welcome, Nikki. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Becky.
My pleasure. So tell us, so you're based in London, which is very exciting. This is our first international journal. So tell us the origin of the magazine. When did it start? How did it start?
We are in London, but we do actually get a lot of American writers in our magazine. So I think it would be really good for everyone. Streetcake started a long time ago. It actually started after me and Trini did our masters in 2008. So after we finished our masters, we had this sort of crazy idea to start a magazine because we couldn't find that many places to publish kind of more non-traditional writing. So we say experimental, but we just basically mean non-traditional. So there won't be much rhyming in our magazine and stuff like that, but we're open to lots of different forms. So we were trying to send our work out and there weren't really that many places, especially not in the UK. I think the US and Canada were much further ahead in that sense. But I think the UK is doing a lot better now. There's loads more places. So that's great news. So at that time, we just thought, let's start this magazine. We had no idea what we were doing. And we came up with this crazy name at a poetry reading and it kind of stuck. And we started sending each other emails saying Streetcake magazine. And we just thought maybe when people heard that, they might remember the name. So we couldn't kind of forget it. So we thought it was a good name for the magazine. So we kept it. So it's been like 14 years now, I think.
Oh, wow.
So quite 13 years, yeah. We've just kind of grown from there, from very, very, very small beginnings.
So what kind of work, so you say experimental just means non-traditional. Can you tell us in terms of, let's say in terms of fiction, in terms of short stories, what does that mean that you wouldn't want to see in a short story?
Yeah, I mean, fiction could be a bit trickier as well, because obviously we do accept things which follow, traditional grammar and punctuation and stuff like that.
Right.
So with fiction, though, we'd probably go for stuff which is kind of more surprising in nature, maybe something with quite a unique voice. Sometimes it does play around with form. We really enjoy those ones, especially if someone is sort of pushing the form and messing around with how it looks on the page. We do enjoy those, or some kind of hybrid is interesting to us. But yeah, that's why we kind of say non-traditional, because we don't we're not going to publish the kind of stuff that maybe wins the stuff in the national competitions, those big competitions, because that's not really our style. We prefer something a bit more offbeat and a bit more just something that's sort of thought a little bit more about something a bit different. And it's really hard to say with fiction, to be honest, because different things appeal to us, but we love humor. Like I say, we do love a good surprise. We quite like some short fiction sometimes, like flash fiction even, or microfiction we really enjoy. Just something that's sort of pushing it a little bit more than the more traditional stuff.
And so when you say the stuff wouldn't be the kind of thing that you would see in, big awards or prize anthologies, is that sort of like a deliberate choice on your part? Like, do you think of the writing that you curate do you think of it as sort of deliberately oppositional to that world? Because I know some lit mags do sort of take that stance, right? That they're sort of trying to oppose like the literary establishment. Or is it just kind of like an aesthetic preference?
I think it's just our preference instead of our kind of reading taste, really. We're not in opposition. We really enjoy some of that writing too, but it's not what we would put in Streetcake. So, you know, I read loads of stuff, loads of different, more traditional writing as well. But for Streetcake, we want to champion a different kind of writing, which maybe you wouldn't see elsewhere. I'll show you an example as well. For example, we just did our prize this year, and we had some really cool stuff. For example, there was a whole story written which has sort of references to different artworks. So it's got kind of this box at the top giving you the information about the artwork, and then it's kind of a reflection on this this artist called Dora Maar, who's quite forgotten in history. So we just thought that was really interesting and slightly different perspective. We had another one that was written in kind of code language.
Oh, wow.
It's about Ada Lovelace. So just kind of, you know, that's the kind of thing we really love. Just something that's, you know, it's not going to win those competitions, but it's a great piece of writing and we want to give it a platform. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
sure, yeah. So you publish, I actually thought it was just an online magazine, but you guys do, is it a yearly print anthology or do you publish regularly?
No, so we've been lucky enough the last 3 years to get funding from the Arts Council in England to run a prize. And each year, I think we've had, the first year we had, I think 12 winners, and the last 2 years we've had 16 winners. And this year we did under 30 and over 30, so we had 2 different categories, and we printed that as an anthology. Yeah. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, it's been a nice step for us. It's really interesting, and also we did cool postcards this year as well, which I thought I would show you as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all their work on postcards, which was really cool.
Oh, that's cool. So do those go out to subscribers and they're just works published on individual postcards?
Yeah, we send it to the winners. We sent them some, and we've sold a couple to help us with, because for the funding you need to have a little bit of income which you bring in, so we have to sell a couple. But yeah, we've sent some to a few people as well, just as a kind of a nice perk.
And so is it hard to publish online with more experimental writing because the formatting might be a little wonky?
Yeah, it can be tricky. I mean, if people send us really visual stuff, then they need to send us a good quality file for that. Trini does most of the technical stuff actually, so she's quite the hero when it comes to that. I mean, to be honest, our website could probably be even more I don't know, up to date or technological, I suppose. We do still just have a PDF, but also I think that does retain a lot of the quality and how people wanted it to look. So it's a tricky balance. I don't know whether there's a better way we could do it, but we're still getting the work out there. So I hope that's it.
So here's a kind of broad question for you, but I'm so curious, like, what is the lit mag scene like in England, in London? So I live in Pennsylvania, and I don't know anything about the literary scene outside the US. So I'm so curious, and I've heard that lit mags are really predominant in the US, like the bulk of lit mags come out of the US, but probably because of MFA programs, which I think are also predominant here. But is there a lit mag scene in London? Is it growing? Is it changing? Are you connecting with other editors there? What's it like?
Yeah, I mean, not just London. I mean, the whole of the UK and Ireland as well. One of my favorite new ones is Berbua, and that's in Ireland. Yeah, I think it's a great thing, because I think also small presses as well are really, really growing and blossoming, I think, because they're publishing a lot of the really interesting work. You know, they're getting new people's names out there, and kind of, like I say, especially with more experimental writing now, there's loads more places. It's great. I mean, I can find places to send work to, and it's just so much better than it was when we first started. So there's loads, and there's a great sort of, especially on Twitter, there's a really good kind of writing community on there and lit mag community on there. And now things are starting to, well, I say now things are starting to open up a bit more. You know what it's like, it's sort of back and forth. But
right.
I went to a couple of events recently, which has been really nice to kind of meet some people I'd met on the internet in person. And, you know, poets I really respect their work. It was nice to meet them and say, oh, hey, it's, you know, and they actually knew who I was. So that's always nice. But yeah, so it's really growing. And yeah, there's so many great things coming out of it. So it's fantastic.
Why do you think it is that it's growing?
I think people are realizing that they can start their own magazines, and you know, it's not that hard in a way to start it. It might be hard to maintain it with time and stuff like that, but I think people were kind of thinking, yeah, I could do that, you know, I can try that. And I think that's brilliant. I think the more people we have being creative, the better. It's you know. And there's always a different slant as well, you know, there's always someone coming along like, oh, I'm doing a magazine all about, I don't know, Greek mythology, or I'm doing a new magazine about, I don't know, just the random things that people decide to focus on. I think is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned that you get a lot of American submissions. Would you say there's a sensibility difference? Are you able to tell in a submission the writer and sort of where they're located?
Sometimes, yeah, actually, you can. It's kind of I don't know. You're going to ask me how, but I'm not sure.
It's a tough question, but I'm just really interested because I've never gotten to interview an editor who has this different perspective. So I'm just curious.
I would say that even the email is different, you know,
really?
The way the submission is worded is different too. So even from the beginning, you can sort of tell. I try not to read the biographies actually until I've read the work, because I don't like to know. Even if I know the name, I just think, no, I'm just going to read the work, and you know, I like it. If I don't like it, then I don't like it. So that's the fairest way you can do it, I think. So I try not to, and then afterwards I sometimes read and go, yeah, I knew. I thought they were
what
American or British or wherever.
I imagine Americans as being very friendly and
yeah, maybe they're slightly less formal in the email. Yeah, maybe because we're trained to just be, you know, oh, excuse me, madam, and we just can't help it. But there's a slightly more playful tone in some of the emails even, which is you can sort of see. And then obviously there is the slightly different terminology that people use for everyday items even. Or sometimes I find that in American fiction, for example, there's quite a lot about kind of you know, road trips or like journey, like something like that, which is quite an American trope, I guess, in our inbox.
Right.
So yeah, I find that quite a lot. I think it's quite funny. It's like, okay, I guess you guys do a lot more traveling in a sense, in terms of, you know, if you want to go somewhere, it's a long journey.
Right.
So maybe that's one that I can identify, but yeah, I'd have to think more about that one.
Sure. So what are you seeing a lot in submissions these days? Some editors say they're seeing a lot of pandemic stories. Some are saying nobody's writing about the pandemic. What kind of things are you seeing?
I wouldn't say we've had loads about the pandemic actually. I would say we get quite a lot about nature actually, quite a bit. You know, in various ways. It might be a more visual one, or you know, I mean, obviously we have had some pandemic stories and things like that. I think because we're quite experimental, we get quite a range of themes as well, so it's kind of hard to identify. I mean, sometimes we do get quite a lot about mental health actually, because I think it's kind of an interesting way to explore that subject if you can use different kind of mediums and you know, a combination of forms, like it's not quite as constrained maybe. So yeah, we do get quite a bit of that actually. So yeah,
can you actually tell us about a piece recently that you published that was like perfect for your magazine and why you chose it?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna have to open the last issue and find the piece that I love the most now. Although that doesn't mean I don't love the rest.
Right. Well, that's really interesting, this idea of using experimental forms to write about something like mental health. I hadn't considered that, but this idea that the form can sort of speak to a psychological experience that you wouldn't be able to convey with more traditional approach.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that, I think, because I think maybe I don't know, it just, maybe it's freeing, and then you think, okay, I can just say what I want, or speak how I want. Where was the one there's some when we just open it and you just go yes. And there was definitely some of those. I'm just trying to find the one that I like the most. Let's see, I'll be as quick as I can, I'm sorry. And then
that's okay, I sort of put you on the spot there.
And it's quite funny because me and Trini obviously have different kind of feelings about different pieces, and we'll be like, you know, oh, do you really like that one, or if you really like it, then I'll then, you know, we'll put it in, but we have to agree. So it's tricky. Okay. Well, I'll go for one really visual one, and then I'll do another one as well, maybe. So there was one in the latest issue by someone called Izzy Searle. I hope I'm saying that right. And it was just really visual. It had kind of vinyls in the background, and then just kind of torn out bits of paper and some big words going through it on 3 different bits, and it was just kind of quite simple and just sort of striking. So we kind of, I think me and Trini both agreed on that one straight away. And we like that the words, you know, we don't like if it's just if there's words in it and they're total nonsense. We quite like if there, you know, there is some kind of meaning to it as well.
So was it like a collage?
Yeah, kind of a collage.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I could share it if you let me.
Sure.
You make me a co-host quickly. I could show. Sorry. Was in trouble.
So I'm making you a host.
Okay, I'll try to show it. Here we go. Move that out of the way.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we just thought this one was just it was just nice, the collage, and then the kind of the torn bits of the paper. We just thought it you know, it feels like you can almost touch it. And the words they used is, you know, quite selective, and they've just got a little bit in there, but it's kind of, you could spend a long time just looking at it. It's quite beautiful. So we really liked that one. So Izzy sent us that. I should look where and see where Izzy's from. I think she might be British, but I'm not sure. And then what was the other one I was going to show you as well? That was one I was going to show you. Like, this one is again a bit more visual, by Kelly Mullins. We just love the way, we quite like when we have to work a little bit harder to get the meaning out, or to kind of interact with the poem. So, you know, you could spend a bit of time just sort of turning the screen around almost and having a look at this one. So we kind of had a lot of fun reading this one, and it's quite, you know, it makes it more kind of interactive, and sort of, you know, your brain isn't just taking in the words straight down the page. You have to look around and explore, I guess. So that's also something that we like in submissions as well. But that's not to say we don't publish more straightforward pieces as well. Like, for example, this is a short poem that we liked. So we do have things like that, which are more kind of, you know, in line, straighter lines and stuff like that. So that's why we say non-traditional, because sometimes if you say experimental, that can seem a little bit frightening, but it's not. So
how does that work with the formatting? Do they just upload it as an image file?
Yeah, if for Izzy's one, for example, that she sent us a JPEG, I think.
Okay.
So then we can just kind of put that into the PDF. Trini does it in InDesign, I believe, so she's got kind of the template and she kind of works it all out. But yeah, sometimes we'll have to go back and say, you know, I think this one here, which is like a map with different bits, we said, oh, we don't know if that's going to be too small. So sometimes we have to go back and kind of ask them for a new file or whatever it might be. But yeah, we try and make sure everyone's really happy, obviously, before it goes out, especially when you've got visual pieces, because if it doesn't look good, then, you know, that's not nice. I mean, I've had that a couple of times where you have to be like, it's not really the best quality. Would you mind kind of updating it? So yeah, we do send everyone a proof before it goes out, so they have the time to kind of to check it. I think that's so important. So
sure, that's really cool. So are there other magazines that are sort of doing something similar to this, or do you guys think you're because I don't see this very often, which it's exciting. So are you sort of charting the path here, or are there other journals that you've sort of modeled yourselves on?
Well, when we started, there weren't, as I said, there weren't many. There was a place called Opened, I think, but they don't exist anymore. And then over time, slowly, there became more and more, which was great, because then we had more places we could send our stuff to. And at the moment, it's a really, really exciting time for experimental writing. There's loads of great places. So, I mean, I can put some in the chat box, but as I said, Bear Bua are really great. There's one called Babel Tower, but they've actually stopped doing the journal, and they're going to become a press next year. But that's also quite exciting. Babel Tower notice board. Osmosis Press, they have a blog as well, and they publish stuff on there, but they also publish books. So they're really good. Full House Lit Mag, it's run by one of the people who won the Streetcake Prize in 2019. So she started a magazine, which is fantastic, and she's absolutely lovely. They're really cool. Acropolis Journal does some stuff. Acropolis, and likes kind of dark stuff as well. So if you're into dark stuff, they're really good. Overground Underground, also run by someone who won the prize in 2019. So that's been good to have that influence. More experimental writing in the world. Woohoo! There was one more I had in my head. Coven Poetry. They're really cool. They quite like sort of naturey stuff as well, which is quite nice.
This is great.
I mean, I could probably keep going for a long time, but we do have some on our site under partners. I try to update it with people that we like, who publish stuff. I'm just double checking if there's any. Oh yeah, okay. Algier Press are really good as well. They're in Scotland. They're cool. Oh, had something on me. Now, Adjacent Pineapple are one of my favorites, but they have had a little break, so I don't know if they're still continuing or not, but they are really cool. You should check them out as well. Any more journals? Again, Untitled Writing, they're actually for underrepresented writers, but they publish some really cool stuff as well. I mean, I could go for a long time here, sorry.
Oh, that's great. This is really interesting.
And obviously I know loads of publishers as well, but those are some of the journals I enjoy reading. There's also some slightly more sort of, you can send them sound files and stuff like that, and like GIFs and stuff. I believe Always Crashing are one of those. I can't remember if another place called Glitch Words are closing or not, but they've got a really good back catalogue of interesting stuff, so you could check them out as well. So anyway, there's a long list in the chat box there for anyone who's interested. And
is there in England or anywhere in the UK, is there anything like AWP? I don't know if you're familiar with AWP. Here in the States, it's a big gathering of all the literary magazines and small presses, and then usually like tens of thousands of writers go, and MFA programs are there. It's sort of like an academic conference with a lot of lit mags and small presses there. So it's a big kind of unifying event here that brings everybody together. And I'm wondering if there's anything like that.
There is a small publishers fair,
Okay,
which I think happens yearly, but not really specifically for lit mags.
Okay,
but it is for small presses. So yeah, I'm not sure. We need to work on that, I think.
Maybe you could organize something.
Maybe.
So take us through the editorial process. So it's just you and one other editor, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so what happens when a piece comes into you?
Well, we'll both read it independently. Sometimes one of us will get to the reading before the other, so we'll kind of mark it with our thoughts, and then we'll both read it and see if we agree or disagree. There might be some maybes that kind of we have to discuss and say, do we like it enough? Maybe we could send them a bit of feedback for next time, or something like that. But generally we agree. If generally we sort of say yes, and then, as I said, there's sometimes a couple where I might like it or Trini might like it more than the other, and we'll have to kind of have a debate about whether we want it to go through or not. And we've actually had so many submissions lately that we had to make it the magazine's 2 parts instead of 1. It used to be just 1 part, but now we get so many submissions, we have to do 2 parts every single time, which is partly good because then we can publish more people. But it is more work.
Like two. Why do you have to do 2 parts for if it's the online?
I just feel like in terms of because we have a lot of visual stuff in our pieces, if we do 1 giant PDF, we feel like it will take forever to load, and won't be a very nice reading experience. So now we separate it into 2 different parts.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So seems to work okay.
What do you attribute the increased submissions to?
Partly the pandemic, I would say. Partly I think it's about people understanding more about what experimental writing is. Because I've been doing a lot more workshops with people and showing how kind of accessible it can be. Showing them some of the really simple techniques they can start with to kind of get writing, to have fun with writing. That's that's the thing I love about experimental writing. When I read it, I feel like people were having fun making it. So I've sort of done some workshops with some little festivals and stuff, and sort of introduced some people to experimental writing, and I think they've realized, oh, actually I was writing that already, or I can do that, which has been one of the best things. So loads of people that come into the inbox, I think, oh yeah, I met them, or they're in the workshop I was there. And that's really nice. And then if we put them in, that's even better.
That's interesting that people have that reaction. Oh, I was already doing that. It's almost like we psych ourselves out. You're writing something and you're just playing and you're having fun, but it goes against some kind of rules of writing. So you feel like you need to stop doing the thing that's fun and do the thing that is acceptable. Yeah.
I find that all the time. People say, oh, I did this, this silly thing. And I say, send it in. I say, if we enjoy it, we're going to put it in, and it's kind of, why do we have to sort of hold up to these standards? Of it should be this, or oh, you have to write in the correct way. I mean, it's not like that. It's that's not writing. That's just silly rules that we need to get over and just enjoy yourself and put it out there.
So what are some techniques that you can use to get writers sort of out of the kind of acceptable idea of what's acceptable and into a space that's more playful and free?
Yeah, I do love to mess them up sometimes. So you know, I find it the most fun when I get someone who comes along who only writes in rhyme ever, and then I get them to ruin their rhyme. It does quite upset them quite a lot. And I say, okay, well, so what happens if you just switch the sentences round? And they go, oh, but it doesn't rhyme anymore. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't matter if it rhymes. You know, are you still saying what you want to say? And then after that, we might try something like we'll grab the dictionary and do the Oulipo N+7 thing, I think, which you've probably heard of, where they can go through and find a word and replace it with 7 up or 7 down or whatever works for them. We have a lot of fun with that. Sometimes I get them to write antonyms instead to see how that comes out, and they're sort of like, oh, but it doesn't. Sometimes they might say, oh, it doesn't make sense now and stuff, and I said, well, maybe it does, just in a different way. And I'm saying that it doesn't mean you have to keep this in. I'm just saying you can play around and see what comes out, and maybe you'll get one new line that you really like, and that's still progress. You know, that's still something new. And then sometimes they might take that line and then, you know, go on and write something different, which is also good. Sometimes we try writing something in a different form. You know, we might try writing a poem as a text message or something, or a story, or writing it as a news report or something like that. And like I say, it doesn't always mean it's going to end up that way, but sometimes it does lead to something new. So yeah, we do all stuff like that. I try and get them to write, for example, not just left justified. I get them to write all over the page, and sometimes there's, you know, they're like, oh, but I have to write on the left. That's why I've been taught. You know, and it's just kind of, no, just go and see what happens. And then they come back and they've started, you know, using the entire page, and it's just, you know, freeing for some people. Some people hate it, it's fine, and that's fine. I say to them, you don't have to like it, but give it a go and see what happens.
And are these exercises primarily for poetry, or do you have some in your toolbox?
No, I have them for fiction too. Yeah, we definitely mess around with fiction too.
Can you give some examples for fiction?
Well, I do. One of my favorite ones is we use some Google images to as a starting point for it, and they kind of try to write a story from that, and then we mess around with the positioning of it. So, you know, they'll have their paragraph which they think is the beginning, and I'll say, okay, well, I want you to move that, and they're like, oh, and you know, and they don't always like moving it, but then sometimes they say, oh no, actually that I probably didn't need that there, and we try writing things from a different perspective to see whether they can put that in or whether they prefer that perspective. And then again, I always like to try and get them to write in a different form to see if they could combine it, or maybe they'll switch to that one instead. So I've had some really good text message stories, as I've said, some really good email ones. Like there's one by Charles Yu, which I think is amazing. And I, you know, if they write something like that, I'm like, wow, that's great. Yeah, it's just about sort of, yeah, not being stuck with, you know, you have to write in these perfect paragraphs. You know, you could leave something unfinished. You could write it as a recipe instead of the way it normally is. I've got some great ones. I run Mum Write for mums, and they've come up with some great ones. There was one that was like an instruction manual, but it was still a story. It was just an instruction manual. So, you know, push it and try and see what happens. You might enjoy it.
Yeah. And is this something that you want to see more of in submissions? If you could tell writers who are thinking about submitting to the magazine, this is what we want. This is what I want to see more of, more playfulness, more experimenting with forms.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of make that pretty clear on the site. I hope we do. And the main thing we say is just, you know, check out the past issues, because you'll see there's such a range in there, and you'll see that we're, you know, the kind of thing that we really enjoy. But yeah, it's you know, play, and don't be afraid to send it in. We'll, you know, we want to see it. So and even if we don't take it this time, you know, maybe next time we will. And you know, I don't think we're mean editors who are like, no, this is really bad, go away. And we're like, look, you know, this wasn't for us this time, but that doesn't mean the next time it won't be. So
And should writers wait before submitting, or can they just keep sending a piece every time they have it?
We if you send it in for one, we just tell you to wait till the next issue's out, but it's every 2 months, so it's not really a long wait. So yeah, we just because we're trying to kind of clear all the writers we have in the inbox and decide what we're going to put in. So if someone keeps sending and sending and sending, it might be like, okay. And I think sometimes it's good to reflect as well and think, you know, when I've been rejected by people, I think again and think, oh, is this the right place? Or maybe they would prefer this, which is a bit different. So I think it's good to kind of take that pause and not just immediately resend to the same place, maybe. Personally, I do.
Do you work with your writers? You mentioned giving feedback, but will you edit a piece with them? Yeah,
I mean, we try to give it's brief feedback because we do get a lot of submission, but we do, especially if we think something had real potential, we try and encourage them and say, you know, this was really close and we really like this about it, but maybe you could work a bit more on this. And sometimes if we really like something, but we think there's something that's kind of bothering us, like snagging at us, we'll email the writer and say, look, we really like this and we really want to take it, but would you consider editing it in this way? And most of the time people will say yes. I think we had one person in the last 6 months who said, no, I'm not ready to edit that and I don't want to change it.
Oh, wow.
And we said, okay, and they took it, they withdrew it. So
wow,
that was yeah. So but generally writers say, oh yeah, okay, I'm fine to do that, and they realize that maybe, you know, we've got a good bit of advice and they accept it. But we wouldn't change anything if people didn't want to. It's just not, you know what it's like as a writer.
So actually, speaking of that, are you submitting your own work as well, and what's your own writing and submitting process?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't sent stuff out since before Christmas. I probably should. But I'm a mum as well, and I haven't had that much time to write at the moment. I'm working on something new, but it's just time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what you mean in terms of my process. I'm not sure. What do you mean, Becky?
Are you, like, some writers have like a system for submitting, where they, you know, every time they get, and this is something I tell people to do, every time you get a rejection, you send out 5 new pieces, or some people are aiming for 100 rejections in a year, or you know, some people are working on longer projects and they're just not submitting. So
yeah, I'm not sure I've set myself that, because I might find it a bit pressurizing. So yeah, I mean, there are certain places that I would really like to have something published. So I kind of, in the last year, I tried to focus in on those, I guess, to say, okay, I really want this place to do it, so I'll send to them. But sometimes I know I send to somewhere that I just genuinely just really like them, and I always want to be in there, so I just try and send them stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some more on my list that I want to kind of get in at some point. And yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's really competitive, and I understand because I run one too, so I get it.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you have you're doing a lot. You're a mom, you're teaching workshops, and is there a day job, part-time job in there as well?
Yeah, I do kind of part-time social media stuff for
okay.
So, yeah, but yeah, it's pretty busy.
So how does the Lit Mag, I asked all the editors, how do you avoid burnout? Is the Lit Mag like a source of joy in your life, or is it something that you're sort of like, oh, it's another thing on my plate? How do you stay excited about it? How do you avoid burnout? How do you just keep up the enthusiasm for it?
Yeah, you would think after so long, you know, 13 years is a long time, but we keep doing it. And Trini's also a mum too. We both got young kids, under 6, 2 each. So there's been some busy times. But I think because we've been doing it for so long, we've realized that we have to take control. So if there's a time when we just don't feel like we can put an issue out, we've said we're delaying it. And I know some places, for example, in the last year, someone else I know who's a mum who runs a lit mag said, oh wow, I didn't know you could just do that. You could just close submissions whenever you wanted to, or you could say, look, we can't do that right now. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, because it's your magazine, you can't, of course you don't want to let people down, but you also don't want to burn out, so we try not to do it often, but there has been a couple of occasions, obviously in the last 5 years or whatever, where we've had to say, okay, we're going to do every 3 months at the moment, or we're taking 1 month extra because we can't put this together right now and we want it to be good. And sometimes when we get to there's too many things in the inbox, we'll just say, look, we're going to close submissions on Friday or whatever it is. Get your work in as soon as you can, basically. And because with social media, it makes that a bit easier because people are on it and they see that, so that's a good thing. And every 2 months is not that long to wait as well. Someone says, oh, I really wanted to be in that, submit for that issue, and you're like, well, you only have to wait until 2 months, it's not that long. So yeah, I think that's important. You have to take control of it because pretty much all of us are working voluntarily. We don't have any funding for the issues that we do for the prize. That's totally separate, and separate work that we do. But I mean, the good thing about it, as I've said to people recently, is that running the magazine is inspiring for us. So that's the best thing about it, and especially, as I said, with experimental writing, you can open up the inbox and you just don't know what you're going to find. There's visual work, there's funny things, there's dark things, there's there's really tender pieces as well in there. And that's why we love experimental writing so much, and that's why we keep going, because it's just great to put all this great work out there. So we're really happy.
Can you tell us, what is Moms Who Write? What is this? You mentioned something that you run, Moms Writing.
Yeah, I run something called Mum Write, which I started in lockdown, when I realized that I had literally no time ever again to write. As soon as I think the schools closed on a Friday here, and then suddenly on the Monday, that was it. I was at home homeschooling, apparently, with this 5-year-old and this 2-year-old. Oh, wow. And I was just like, no. So I was like, right, that's it. I'm setting up a writing program for mums, because it's just, every time I tried to look for other things, I knew that my kids were going to walk in, and I knew that I sometimes was going to be absolutely exhausted, and sometimes I wouldn't have done any writing. So I thought, do you know what? I'm setting up my own thing where mums can come along. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to, have washed their hair that day, because my goodness, that was the last of our worries. Your kid can come in and make a noise. It doesn't matter, because they kept coming in when I was trying to teach. So, so I just kind of decided to set this up, and it was really good for me as well, because then I had an excuse to write more. And all the mums did. We'd say to our partners, "Look, sorry, I've got to write something for Mum, right?" See you later. But it was a good way to get back to writing, and I think I wrote a lot more in the last year or year and a half, because I had Mum Write to kind of keep me going, and the community of mums as well has been amazing. So many great cheerleaders of each other. Just kind of it's sharing submission opportunities and giving each other feedback, and real champions. It's been fantastic.
So do you all log on and write together? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so I basically ran workshops. There was also like 6 workshops over maybe 6 months, but then we'd also have like a platform to talk, and obviously all online together, some email feedback going around. So yeah, it was a great program.
Has it stopped?
No, it's still running. I've had to kind of reinvent it a bit because with a new course about being a confident published writer. So that's kind of all about getting your work together to send it out to agents and publishers and stuff like that. So it's more about the marketing and the editing and stuff like that. So it's kind of an amalgamation of lots of the workshops I've done over the last year and a half, 2 years now. So
and how do you meet other writers in your world? Is it through your graduate program or just kind of word of mouth?
Do you mean in terms of who submits, or just
like when you do these workshops and you run these programs?
Well, I mean, to be honest, being online is the biggest way to connect, isn't it? Some people said that they started their magazines by finding Streetcake, which, what a compliment. And then they kind of said hello. They were like, "Oh, hi, I really enjoy Streetcake. I've started my own magazine." And then, then we kind of chatted more to each other, and we've sort of shared each other's stuff. And so that's been a really big thing, especially Twitter, I would say, again, for writing. It has been a really big platform. And kind of everyone kind of supports each other on there. And as I said recently, I've met people that I've made friends with in the last 2 years online in person, which has been really odd. So, but also really nice. You're friends with these people you haven't met, but it's great. And also the fact that you can do workshops internationally now is fantastic, because I love meeting writers from all around the world. Because they bring different things, they bring different perspectives and different ways of writing, even different methods they might use, and that's fantastic.
So what advice would you give if I have I'm an experimental writer, I'm sort of exploring the form, and I'm not sure about a piece? What advice would you give me for submitting to Streetcake?
It's good to find some other writers who maybe are doing similar things to you, and you could always ask them for their input on what you're doing. But I think, if you've got something that you think we might like, just send it in. As I said, we're not going to be, me and Trini come from backgrounds where we're not going to be kind of snooty about stuff, where some places can be a bit snooty, I think, but we're kind of, give it a go. We're not going to be horrible to you about what you've tried to do. maybe that experiment hasn't been as successful, but maybe the next one will be. So sometimes I try things that don't work, and that's fine, but so don't be afraid, basically. Send it in. We'll try our best to give you feedback as much as we can. And if not, keep reading the magazine, keep look for other places, get inspired and try it.
Sounds great. So what's on the horizon for you guys? Do you have an issue coming out soon? What are submissions open soon?
Yeah, so our next issue is coming out on the 15th, so not long now, which is exciting. Loads of great work in there, as ever. So it's going to be a really good issue, actually. And we basically, as soon as the issue's out, we're open. So just to give ourselves extra work, so we'll be open again after that. And apart from that, we're finishing up our prize for last year with our lovely anthology. So pretty.
Oh, looks great.
Trini makes the covers. I think I really like them.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of red as well. And yeah, we're applying for funding for next year, but obviously we don't know if we'll get that. So, but either way, the issues will continue, and we'll keep being in the community and championing experimental writing.
So submissions will open very soon, and people can find you at streetcake streetcakemagazine.com.
Correct.
And on Twitter at streetcake magazine.
I think we're just at streetcake mag actually.
Okay. And are you guys
on
on
there
Facebook?
And Instagram? I think we're the same.
Streetcake mag. Okay. And are you on Facebook as well?
We are. Yeah. You can find us on there. Yeah.
Great.
We're all over the social media.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This was so interesting. I love this idea of sort of bringing this element of play into the work. I think that's really great.
Yeah, that's really important, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for Patricia and Mary for coming along too.
Oh yeah. Thank you guys for coming out today.
Thank you. It's very interesting and gives me a great bit of hope to submit something experimental, because always that thing of, oh well, nobody will want to see it, So I've already taken notes as to what I can.
Brilliant.
Wonderful.
Do you have any questions, Patricia?
No, I've just opened up your Instagram there. I'm going to have a look at it then. And thank you for all the lists of mags as well, but it'll be to yours first.
Yeah, we do a lot of sharing of different places. So yeah, do keep an eye with them. We'll share places as well.
Oh, sorry, actually I don't use Twitter, and I'm only recently on Instagram, and I'm kind of shadowing because I don't feel that comfortable being on it. So you don't have to be on it to succeed at this, I presume.
Oh no, not at all. No.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I just want to add my thanks too. I have been sitting here taking notes and have enjoyed every word and can't wait to read Streetcake. I haven't been familiar with it, so thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy it.
I will.
All right.
And Becky, it's always an inspiration. I really
Oh,
appreciate
good.
it. I don't know what you're going to pick up, but this is all wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. I'm gonna get teared up here. Thank you guys so much.
I rushed home. I absolutely rushed home from something to get here. I was a few minutes late, and then I'll be on tomorrow as well.
Oh wow, yes, there's another interview tomorrow. Yeah, this is great.
Really
Thank you guys.
Dedicated followers there, Becky.
Yeah, I know. You guys are the best. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. This is really helpful and inspiring, and good luck to you with the magazine.
Thank you, Becky. Thanks for having me on. It's been lovely.